copy. But if you're doing sync audition, if you're doing it to picture, you'll have the beats. They'll never give you to picture without beats.
So for when you're reading copy, is it like, do they tell you this is a specific type of character, or like for a specific show, or do they just...
Sometimes they'll give you background. Usually on the copy there'll be some description. If you've never seen any of that stuff before, if you're not familiar with the show or whatever it is, the project, they'll usually have some sort of description on there as to what kind of character it is, maybe a couple of character traits.
And sometimes they'll have a picture, like an image, like a screen capture of what the character looks like, so you can look at it and go, oh, it's a fluffy little bunny. Maybe that voice would be this way rather than a different voice.
Fluffy, like, I don't know, it's just making me nervous now. Come on, just sort of staring at me. Because also, he's giant, if anybody noticed. I don't know. Just checking.
Oh yeah, do you hear that?
Wow. They put a lot of work into that.
They did.
It's not a piñata though. I don't want to see anybody hit. There are a lot of swords in the audience, and I don't want anybody hitting the alcohol.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of times the director, you'll get into the booth and they'll say, did you have a chance to look over the copy? And you'll say yes, and they'll say, okay, so what I want to tell you about this character is, and then they'll give you a little spiel, either about the show or the character or what it is they think they're looking for with the audition, and that's really your stepping stone. I mean, you have to put your own spin on it. You have to use your own creative choices as an actor when looking at the material. If you're fortunate enough to be familiar with the show, if you're already a fan and you know it, you might sort of have an idea of, oh, well, I already know that this is like a little like husky kind of, you know, like you're going to know in your head what you think it already sort of is in the area of. But sometimes they want to veer away from that. Sometimes they want to stay really true to that. So like, there's so much variety that the director will almost always, unless they have no idea what they're looking for, they'll almost always give you some sort of hint or clue as to, hey, this is what we're looking for. So that's what a typical audition is like. I mean, I don't know, did I forget anything?
No, I don't think so. I think you pretty much covered it. I mean, everyone's going to be a little different, but that's generally what happens.
Oh, but sometimes they don't tell you what show it is, because sometimes there's like NDAs, which are non-disclosure, and they don't want the information to get out. So sometimes you just show up and you're like, you're auditioning for a young girl character.
Yeah,
okay,
I didn't.
see,
I wasn't that familiar with the Final Fantasy series. Just wasn't a game that I had gotten into. When I actually auditioned for and recorded an entire thing when they ported Final Fantasy IV to the DS a couple of years ago. They had me record this character for it. Because I hadn't played Final Fantasy, I didn't know. So I didn't even know but they didn't want to tell anybody because Final Fantasy is this huge title and they didn't want, you know, the news to get out that they were doing this. They wanted to keep it secret until they wanted people to know about it. And so somebody actually told me, oh my God, you just worked on the Final Fantasy, I just heard you on the thing. I'm like, I did? That's awesome! You know, like sometimes they really keep it as secret as possible. We've been to auditions where we will read sides, we'll read copy, you know, we'll read the script in the audition, and it's fake. That they'll actually write different sides that will give them an idea of whether or not you can play the character, but they're not actually from the show. Because they've had problems in the past where actors will then take those sides home, post them on the internet.
People leak information.
Yeah. Believe it or not. In general, the internet's is your friend, but...
Yeah. So that happens. Yeah. But that's what a typical audition is like, yes. Yes.
I was going to ask, since you guys are together and are a couple, and you get to work on this particular show together, how often is it that you get work that's together?
How often do we get to work together is the question.
Well, like I was saying earlier when I was describing sort of the difference between original animation and dub animation, with dub, you rarely are actually working together. I mean, as the actor, you'll go in and you'll record and the director will be there and the engineer will be there, but you're rarely there with another actor because it's just you by yourself. Sometimes, if we're working on the same title, we'll schedule our sessions next to each other so we can carpool, because we're tricky like that. But we're not always necessarily getting to work together in that sense. We have worked on a number of titles together, which means we're working on the same projects, but we're oftentimes recording at separate times on different days, doing our own thing.
But because we know a lot of the same people, and those people know us, we'll occasionally get to work on things together.
Yeah.
And actually together. We actually met working on a movie together. And for those kind of projects, you do actually get to work, you know, together as opposed to together but apart.
Yeah.
Which
But I
a lot of the dubbing.
but I would say from the number of projects we've worked on, maybe a fifth has been together. Maybe a fifth, which is actually pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
But because we do so much voiceover, and the thing about voiceover is it's wonderful because it's a very tight community, and it's not that they're not open to bringing in new people and new voices and new sounds, but once you've started working with people that you know you like, and that are talented, and that are professional, and that show up and get the job done, and that it's fun to be around, why wouldn't you want to work with them again? And so what happens is it becomes this very tight-knit community where you do see a lot of the same people over and over again. So it's, I think it would probably be different, and it is different on camera. We've worked together a lot less and on a lot fewer titles together with on camera or in plays and theater and television and stuff like that than we have with voiceover, because in voiceover there's just it's just a tighter knit community. It's just a smaller group that sort of works together.
And sometimes we try to put together projects in which we'll get to work together.
Yeah.
We'll try to put together our own projects because we want to work together.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Yes, you had your hand up. Because you're dressed as Tamari.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She should be allowed to ask all the questions.
Pick me. Pick me.
You can ask his question and her question. Yes.
Great cosplay. On Naruto, do I do any other voices? Just in general. Yes, I do other voices. Oh my goodness, let's see if I can pull some of them out.
I'm the nerd. I'll come up with some of the titles if you can.
I did Reina in Rave Master. I did.
Which actually is which used to aired on Cartoon Network several years ago, and then they stopped it. But apparently is now airing on Sci-Fi.
Sci-Fi next week.
Sci-Fi next week.
I'm very excited.
On Monday nights, I think.
It's been a long time since I've done that character. I can't wait to hear what I did with the character.
Yeah, we thought that show had been killed, but it's back.
I was Tokiko on Buso Renkin. I was Ginny on Marmalade Boy. I was
Castor in Fate's Day Night.
Castor in Fate's Day Night. I was Wonder Woman in DC vs. MK.
If you're gamers out there.
If you're a gamer. Which was cool because it's Wonder Woman. I was Superman though. I was Dream Girl on Legion of Superheroes, which was cool because that was a show we got to work on together. What are other animated titles that I've done? Can we talk about them?
No.
Okay.
That's another thing. We have to be careful what we talk about. But it's a great show, and you'll love it.
What are some other titles? It's so hard to just think of them off the top of my head. But yes, I've done other stuff. Yes.
Okay. This is one question. Has there ever been a voice actor that you want to work with and you haven't had a chance to? Like Don, would you like to work with a Don Messick or Peter Fernandez, or would you like to work with Murray, or someone like that?
Yeah. Are there any actors who we would love to work with, or have loved to work with?
I think pretty much every actor. I mean, not to sound like I'm blowing your question off, but yeah, if somebody's good at what they do and I respect them and I haven't yet worked with them or met them, of course I would like to meet them or work with them. I'm equal opportunity. I like to work with everyone. I think you learn something from everyone you work with. I think anytime you're working on a project, no matter how big or how small or what the relationship is, even if it's a dub project that you never go in on the same sessions together, listening to the show, you learn something from other people.
But would you love to work with, say, a Grand Valley, like Luke Foray or Pete Bandera, one of those ladies who's been there for,
Yeah.
What would you like to find out about from,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Who's the one that played Minnie Mouse?
Pete Bandera.
What is it?
Pete Bandera.
And
also like Wilma Flintstone for a while.
Right.
She's Wilma. Did she play Minnie Mouse too?
Yeah.
Really? I thought her name.
She did everything.
I thought it was Ruthie something. But yeah, of course I would love to. I mean, all the people that were Hanna-Barbera.